Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. And for those being affected by the LA fires, our hearts are with you and we're sending you our best. All right. Welcome to Outlook on America, the first 150 days of 2025, presented by Comerica Bank. We are so glad you could join us. Now, today, we're going to discuss what's on everyone's minds, the election results, and how they'll impact the economy and the markets. Like I said, I'm Eva Saha, thrilled to be joining the Comerica team as your moderator and host. And with me today are two Comerica experts and the friendly faces we all count on to educate us and stimulate some great conversation, Dan Donahoe and Bill Adams. Hello, friends. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for being here. And I heard, by the way, that you can say Happy New Year until February, and then we got to cut it out. So we're good for now. Dan Donahoe, Comerica Senior Vice President and Director of Government Relations, manages the company's legislative and political activities. Dan, you made some spot on predictions last summer when we met online, and we are really glad you're back for a post election debrief. Bill Adams, Comerica's Senior Vice President and Chief Economist, leads Comerica's Economics Department, providing research and analysis that impact the bank's key markets, as well as business leaders and policymakers all throughout the country. So, Bill, I know you have a summary report of the election's likely economic consequences that should be out on the website just about now. But it's always so great to have you live to engage with our attendees. Okay, great. You've been very busy. All right. Thank you both for being here and for sharing your time and expertise with us. And for those joining, we really do appreciate your engagement, so much so that we invite you to submit comments and ask questions during the Q&A after our moderated conversation. Just put them in the chat when they occur to you. And even after the webcast today, we really encourage you to stay in touch. Along with the reports that Bill just mentioned, you'll find at least weekly economic and investment commentary by Bill on the company website at comerica.com/insights. And of course, we invite you to reach out to Dan and Bill offline at any time. I got their permission for that, by the way. All right, we have a lot to get to, so let's start with Dan Donahoe. Dan, you called it another close election last November. That seems to be the norm these days. So I wasn't told that we would be doing any math this morning, but thanks for that and the history lesson and a real ad for get out the vote because everyone does matter. So I
No
appreciate those
question.
numbers. So Dan, Trump made a lot of promises on the campaign trail, including many day one promises. But first on his agenda is obviously putting his people in place. Talk to us about nominations and confirmations. So the Republicans now have the trifecta, the White House and the majority in the Senate and the House of Representatives. What direction do you see this new Trump administration and Republican Congress going in? So an upgrade in the software from the 1.0 to the 2.0, a little bit of change. All right, Dan, you mentioned the three key issues that you expect Republicans to focus on in the first 100, 150 days, however long it takes: immigration, energy, taxes, and how they will likely try to move them through the reconciliation process.
Right.
Talk to us about the timetable for this and a little bit more detail about how it'll proceed. All right, so it's a laborious process. It takes time. It's not a given because of these different factions within the Republican Party. One of the big issues they have to tackle is the debt ceiling. So could you comment a little bit about that, given what you just said? I don't want to add more complexity, but I feel like you're ready for it this morning. There's been a lot of chatter around tariffs, both before and after the election. Any indication where and when, Trump 2.0, as you say, will move on that front? All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being with us, and don't go anywhere because we're going to get to you in the Q&A. Everybody go ahead and start typing the questions. I actually see some coming in already. Love the engagement. You all are ready for 2025. But before we get to all of that, I'd like to invite Bill back to the program. Dan set you up. We need some answers from you. But just I know you mentioned tariffs. Economists have been weighing in on the potential effects, and I'm sure you have an opinion. But first, talk to us about the general state of the economy and what you're forecasting at the moment. Bill is back. I love it. We welcome the good news, especially because the inflation picture has been really bad news over the last 2 years. As you know, it's been painful for consumers and businesses alike. I bet if Dan was on the screen right now, he'd say that the election results seem to have confirmed that. Do you see some relief coming? I'll take annoyance over crisis any day of the week. So thanks for that. Dan mentioned, and we're all anticipating many policy changes in the federal government. And though we can't be certain about which will take effect, what's your opinion on those that might and how they may affect the economy? A lot of balls in the air. Where does that leave the Fed? Where do you see interest rates going this year? All right, thanks for that, Bill. There's a lot of interest about tariffs, and we're going to get to that, everybody, in the Q&A. Don't worry. But before we do, so Bill, we know you as an award-winning and acclaimed economist, but some people may not know that you also have an advanced degree in international finance. Yeah, you earned it. So no, but obviously, by the nature of your job, you've got your finger on the pulse of how the economy will affect the market. So we would love to hear your thoughts before we move on to Q&A. That's fantastic. People can really get ready for 2025 that way. All right, I'd love to have Dan rejoin us to address the audience questions. Thanks again for how much you're communicating in the chat. We love all those questions and comments. If we don't get to your question for some reason, Dan and Bill and the entire Comerica team are here to answer any and all of them offline. So please be in touch, everyone. All right, just let's get it out of the gate because we talked about it. Both of you did the tariffs. I think a lot of people are expressing concern about the pass through to businesses and consumers. I'd love for you to both talk about that. Bill, why don't we start with you? Is there a question you'd like to answer first, or should I just repeat myself? I know this is the thing. This is why we love this engagement. I mean, so many really thoughtful minds in the platform right now. So thank you. But there seem to be a lot of them that are coming with respect to tariffs, and people are very concerned about the pass through to businesses and to consumers, how it's going to affect them. Could you speak to that, Bill? Thank you for that. Was there a question you wanted to address right off the bat that you were so interested in on the chat? All right. Well, we already told everybody that you are Bill Maybe Adams now, so it's okay if you're not 100% certain. So the Fed obviously is managing interest rates in the economy. Dan, under the new administration, will the independence of the Fed be respected, in your opinion? Thank you for that. Okay, so for you, Bill, we have an investment question, which means you sold your LinkedIn hard and they are responding. What do you think of them extending the lifetime gifting at the higher rates versus reducing it back to 5 million at the end of 2025? All right, well, let me get back to Bill on another investment type question. I know that you talked about this a little bit, but how does super high valuations in the stock market continue in 2025? Great. Dan, you talked about the debt ceiling and likely, this effort by Trump to raise the debt ceiling. If that happens, what country do you see the US borrowing from? That's a very interesting question. You are right. He has some sort of magic power. All right. So, Bill, do you want to weigh in on where we would borrow from? All right. We have so many great questions coming in, and don't worry, we're going to send this recording out to everybody, and you can follow up with us. But let's get to a couple more. With the rise in catastrophic events worldwide, how do you see this affecting businesses and the insurance marketplace? Bill, you're shaking your head. I feel like you've thought about this. Yeah, that is top of mind for everybody, especially with the LA fires. Again, a shout out to all of you who are experiencing issues. We are sending our love. Dan, before we get to some of your final thoughts, with the expected tax cuts that you talked about, what areas, and you also talked about having to reduce government spending, what areas do you think will be targeted for that reduced government spending? All right, thanks for that. Now, I would love to just get a final thought from each of you. And Dan, I'm not telling you what to say, but if there is a little bit of optimism around bipartisanship, just because I know you visit DC a lot, things that people can come together on, and maybe just a point of, we don't want Bill to be the only one who's optimistic. I want to give you that opportunity too, Dan. Love to hear it. So Bill, since I'm Pollyanna today, no, just whatever, any last thoughts for us? Okay, love it. Thank you both so much for being with us. Really appreciate all your insights, the history lessons, the math lessons, the investment lessons. Thanks to everyone who joined the webcast today. We really appreciate your attendance and engagement. And like I said, we are going to get this recording to you post conversation today. And there's a lot of good stuff online, so please be sure to check it out. These gentlemen work really hard and have a lot of great insights to bring to you. As always, we'd love for you to complete a short survey about today's Outlook on America so that we can bring you information in the way that best suits you. So just look out for an email on that from us in the next couple of business days, and thank you in advance for answering it. And while we look forward to connecting with you all throughout the rest of the year, put a note on the calendar that we'll have a mid-year Comerica Bank Outlook on America on June 10th. Look out for an email invitation in May, and until then, be well and safe, sending love to LA, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.